The grief and anger was not just expressed by the family of photojournalist Ruben Espinosa, murdered last Friday with 4 other women, but also by his colleagues and friends.
Our family is proud of him, and he will always live on for us, and we hope for you all, you journalists, photographers, those who work in the media, he also lives on for you, and you can learn from his courage.
And while many critical journalists say they're willing to take risks to publish the truth, others have turned to self-censorship, reminded by the 103 media workers killed since 2000, with many of their cases left unsolved.
And this impunity is so that one doesn't say anything, to quiet all voices, and to be against the right to information. That is the main motive.
Since 2010 in the volatile state of Veracruz, 14 journalists alone have been killed, pointing to corruption between the government and organized crime. While the family, friends, and colleagues of Espinosa say that he was their eyes in seeing truth, they now say that they will be his voice in demanding justice. This past weekend, journalists protested in Mexico's major cities, insisting that the authorities launch a thorough investigation into Espinosa's murder, speculating that his profession is the fundamental reason for his death.
Underlining that, it is fundamental that the investigations privilege the line on his journalistic work. In particular, because the victim denounced in various occasions in recent days that he was being followed and harassed in this capital.
Journalist rights defenders say the authorities have inclined to ignore or actively negate investigating the murders or threats made against journalists, forcing many, like Espinosa, to go into self-exile.
In recent years, we've helped 70 journalists to go into self-exile to Mexico City for reasons of security, violence in their communities. They are trained, they're given post-traumatic stress therapy, they're given legal aid, and many of them return.
While Espinosa will not return, rights groups and fellow journalists continue to protest, demanding that effective measures are taken and implemented to protect not only media workers, but the right to free speech. Clayton Khan, teleSUR, Mexico City.
The so-called outrage movement in Honduras that for the last 2 months has been protesting with torches in the street demanding an end to corruption showed their discontent with the National Congress decision that stopped the process of plebiscite that would allow external investigation on corruption cases of the current government.
It is sad that the National Congress doesn't answer to the people. We have been protesting in the streets of Tegucigalpa and in 50 different cities in the country. Today, 66 lawmakers that I would say work for organized crime and corruption voted against the proposal of a plebiscite that would create an international anti-impunity commission.
The protest movement will hit the streets again on Friday and said that they will continue to put pressure on the government.
We have to move on to the next stage. That means all the social movements must increase their participation and pressure. We need to stand up for the problems that we see in our country, the problems of the campesinos, the indigenous peoples, the students. This is the right moment to act. It's the time to speak up and put more pressure on this government that came to be as a result of fraud.
The Honduran government has been very clear that they won't allow investigation in the corruption cases. It will now depend on social pressure to bring an end to impunity in the country. Gerardo Torres, teleSUR, Central America.
On the 70th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima, many still wonder why such a heinous crime was committed against innocent civilians. Citizens feel a need to keep the memory of the victims alive by attending events such as an exhibition hosted in Washington, D.C. to show the suffering inflicted on the Japanese people.
I kind of forced myself to come this morning because I know it's the anniversary. I did and didn't want to see, the exhibits because I knew they'd be pretty horrible, but maybe it's something like atonement.
The bombing of Hiroshima, which took 140,000 innocent lives, has been claimed by the United States as a necessity in order to end the war. However, over the years, historians have revealed that there were other interests involved in the bombing.
The Japanese were ready to surrender, that they perhaps were going to try to surrender to the Russians, and that was probably something that the United States did not want to see happen.
A double standard was shown as the horrifying crime against humanity was never brought to justice.
Everything that I've learned in the last couple of years has, tells me that this was a terrible, terrible thing to do. And You know, we talk about American exceptionalism, and I think what that means is that this would be a war crime if anybody did it except the United States.
3 days after the first bomb was dropped, the United States released a second bomb on the city of Nagasaki, killing another 70,000 people. The effects of these bombs remained long after, as they continued taking lives through radiation poisoning and other related illnesses. Bianca Perez, teleSUR, Washington, D.C.
With developments in the Middle East accelerating, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov signed a draft UN resolution on the mechanism to investigate the use of chemical weapons in Syria on the sideline of the summit of the Association of Southeastern Asian Nations. It's likely that this agreement will be discussed during the Security Council meeting next Friday.
We could see during the next phase a US and Russian agreement for the establishment of an alliance against Daesh in cooperation with Iran and countries in the region. All of this that is happening today is creating a positive atmosphere to bring together the opposition and the Syrian government.
The Syrian Foreign Minister, Mr. Walid al-Muallim, has arrived to Tehran to discuss the situation in the region with the Iranian Foreign Minister, Mr. Mohammad Javad Zarif. Al-Muallim reiterated that the party in Syria is fighting terrorism and stressed that Damascus welcomes every move in this direction. According to leaked information from Tehran, there is a new Iranian political initiative to solve the crisis in Syria. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian has said that they will soon announce the terms of this initiative and then will hand it over to the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Those in the Western and Arab countries who claim that they want a war on terrorism are actually the main ones responsible for this terror. They want to use it to break the axis of resistance in the region. But today, we are beginning a new phase of resistance. The U.S. General Dempsey said, "We cannot win against terrorism without a ground war." So we challenged them to come here with men, like those of the resistance in the Syrian Arab army.
On the ground, battles continue to rage across the country against the extremist group, making a negotiated solution even more urgent. Hazim Abdullah, teleSUR, Syria.
Argentina's right-wing presidential candidate Mauricio Macri has, as of late, adopted a pseudo-progressive discourse to attract voters. But according to a video leaked and televised nationally, if elected, Macri plans to implement a neoliberal economic package, including devaluating the currency, cutting public spending and paying the vulture funds up front and in cash.
We have more to win than to lose if Argentina returns to its foundations of living off free trade with small government.
Fiscal, monetary and currency imbalances make economic adjustment inexorable.
¿Cuál es el verdadero plan de Mauricio Macri? En unos minutos te lo vamos a mostrar.
The video was leaked and broadcast nationally late July by the economist and journalist Roberto Navarro.
It is a plan that will destroy Argentina's economy.
In it, economists that advise Mauricio Macri on financial policy admitted to their intentions of implementing an economic adjustment package if Macri's conservative pro-party is voted into office in this year's presidential elections.
Si esos mismos economistas hubieran ido a un set de televisión o a una radio y le hubieran hecho un reportaje,
those same economists will have gone to a television set or to a radio program. They will have never said what is in the leaked video. It is politically incorrect to do so. To say that you will cease paying 3.5 million age pensions, or to label wage bargaining as fascist, and that they must be abolished, absolutely scares off voters.
Presidential candidate Mauricio Macri currently serves as the mayor of Buenos Aires City, where he has carried out conservative economic policies. Members of the opposition in Buenos Aires City say that if Macri is elected president, he'll take the same neoliberal economic policy to the rest of the country.
We know Macri well because he has governed the city for 8 years, and we all know that all he has done during this time is sink the city into more debt through financial bicycling, that he has not carried out major works of infrastructure, and that his first measure in government was a cutback in public servants, which was resisted by the unions who finally prevailed. But it must be said that his first measure was a major cutback.
Mauricio Macri's economic advisors all have common denominators. They all want to earn greater competitiveness, but at the cost of pulling the support out from under those in society who are most in need. In addition, many of his advisors were officials in the neoliberal Carlos Menem government during the 1990s. Leo Politico Duty, teleSUR, Buenos Aires.